In this video, I'm going to be demonstrating some basic terminal commands. I have my shell open on macOS, that is ZSH by default. I also have the Finder open because terminal commands are just interacting with the operating system. Anything you can do with the mouse, you can do with the terminal. So I'm going to show all the changes happening in real time in the Finder while I'm typing the commands into the terminal. Now, these commands, they are Unix-based commands. They will work on Mac OS. They will work on Linux. If you're on Windows, there are some slightly different commands, so just be aware of that, unless you install Windows Subsystem for Linux, in which case you will get access to those same commands. That is one of the most annoying things about being a programmer, is that Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, Windows is the oddball of the group. I also modified my shell prompt so that the full path is going to show up here above where I'm typing my commands. That's just to make it easier for you as a viewer to keep track of where I actually am. So let's get started. The first command I'm going to show you is the print working directory command. That shows us our current location. Because by default, a lot of terminal prompts, they will only list out the current folder that you're in. And sometimes as a developer, you want to see the full path from the root. So print working directory is going to be pwd, print working directory. And you can see that prints out, I'm in my home directory on the Mac. That is /users/Eric. And if we look over at our Finder, here we are. The root is the Macintosh HD. That's the first slash here. Users, Eric. So we have a match. And whenever you see the tilde character, that is just shorthand for your home directory. So the tilde and this directory are functionally equivalent. Now in the Finder, we can see there's a whole bunch of folders here. There's a whole bunch of directories. So in the terminal, if I want to see what is in a directory, the command is ls. This is going to list directory. And you can see here, the folders all list out from applications all the way up to public, just as they are in the Finder. So again, just driving home this point that anything you can do with the mouse, anything you can see in the Finder, you can also view in your terminal shell. And another thing you need to know about commands is that they often have arguments. Now, arguments are extra information that can change the way a command behaves. So for example, over here in the Finder, if I want to show hidden files and folders, which are turned off by default, I can hit Command-Shift-. And as soon as I do that, you see that there are a whole bunch of hidden files and folders that were not apparent previously. I can do this in the terminal as well. If I do ls-a, that will show me all files, including the hidden files and folders. So every command does have these different options that you can throw at it to change the behavior. Do I just want to see the normal public things, or do I want to see everything? Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn that back off by using Command-Shift- again, just so it's a little bit tighter, and we're not going to be working with any hidden files as part of this demo. I just wanted to show that. And then if you do want to clear your terminal because things are getting a little crowded, you can just type the word clear, hit enter, and it will just clear that out. Now, note that your terminal shell, it does remember stuff. It's not actually clearing all the way. If you scroll up here, you can see some of the history will be maintained. It basically pads it with some blank lines. So don't worry about that. If you do see that, clear isn't really deleting immediately. But there is a buffer in your shell, and it will only remember back so far before it stops remembering things. But now let's go ahead and create a directory. And this is something you're going to want to do as you get into coding. You probably want to create a folder space for your learning where you're going to keep all your projects for your different languages. If you want to make a directory, the command is mkdir, make directory. And then you hit a space and you give it the name of the directory you want to create. So I'm just going to call this terminal_demo. And as soon as I hit enter, look over at the Finder, there is the folder that was created by the terminal. So again, anything you can do with the mouse, you can do in that terminal. Now, if I want to move into the directory, this is the equivalent of clicking in the Finder. The command is cd, which stands for change directory. And then you just give it the name of the directory. And now you'll see I am in home/terminal demo. So we are in the same place in the terminal and the Finder. Now, another thing you can do is I can say cd and just put a front slash, and that will move me to the root of the hard drive, which is Macintosh HD. So over here in the Finder, now I'm in the root. And again, if I hit ls, you can see there are the folders, applications, library, system, users. Why are there extra folders here that aren't being shown there? And the answer is, this is your first entry point into being a real developer and a power user of computers. The Finder is used by normal users, so there are some things that Apple is hiding from these users, because some of these directories in the root, like bin, they have very important files and commands and things like that in them. And if you mess with them, delete them, remove them, edit them improperly, it can break your operating system. So the Finder is protecting normal users, but if you're using the terminal, there's an assumption that you know what you're doing, so it allows you to see more and do more than you would normally be able to. So I'm just going to tell you as a beginner, don't touch those folders. Just leave them alone. Don't delete them. Don't edit them unless you know exactly what you're doing. Now let's go back to our terminal demo directory using the Finder. So I'm going to click. Oh, I went to shared. And now we're back in that directory. Now in your shell, you can use cd, and there is tab completion. So I know that this is users. I can just type capital U and hit tab. And if there's only one option, it will just figure it out. So I can literally just type partial words, hit tab, and with cd, you can not only use just a single folder, but you can give it a path directly to where you want to go. Now I am back in the same folder as I was before. And another trick you can do with make directory is you can create nested directories all at once instead of just one at a time. So let's just say I want to create a structure like projects/Python. I can do make dir, and then another argument is -p, which means create the parents. And I can say projects/Python and hit enter. And you see immediately that folder appears. And if I open it, there is my Python subfolder that is there as well. So you can do multiple steps at once with a lot of these commands, which is really cool. I can do the same thing with ls. So I'm in the terminal demo folder. If I want to see what's in the projects folder, I can do ls projects. And you see it shows me that Python is inside that folder. So you don't have to actually be in the directory that you're running the commands against. You can type a path. In fact, if I go back up to the root, I can do ls, and then I can do users, Eric, terminal demo, and you can see the projects folder is in there. Now, when you're actually using the terminal, I like to be in the directory that I'm executing my commands on. It's just easier. You're less likely to make mistakes typing out a full path. But just note that the majority of the commands, you can provide a full path to where you want it to work. I can even create directories elsewhere on the hard drive by just specifying path. So let's clear the terminal, and now I'm going to navigate back to my home directory, to the terminal demo directory. And now I'm going to add some files. Now, the way you can add a file, if you want a blank, empty text file, you can use a command called touch. So I'm going to say touch, and we'll just call this poem.txt. And you can see right away that file does appear. Its size is 0 bytes. Now, is there anything in it? No. And the way you can check with a text file is to use the command called cat. So cat will open a text file and it will print out everything in it. So if I say cat poem.txt, nothing comes back because it's empty. And now most beginners, if they wanted to edit this file, they would double click it and they would open it in a text editor and they would edit it. But we can do that in the terminal too. So I'm going to use a tool called Nano. Now Nano is a really lightweight text editor. And if I say nano poem.txt, it's going to open the Nano interface. And Nano is a very basic text editor. But now I'm inside the file poem.txt, and I can do something like roses are red, violets are blue. And then if I want to save, I need to write out my changes. And you can see at the bottom here, there are a list of commands with the control key. So if I hit Control O, that's going to write it out. It lets me change the name of the file if I want to. I don't. I'm just going to hit enter. It says it wrote 2 lines. I did write 2 lines, so that matches up. That makes me happy. And then I can hit Control X to exit. And now if I type cat poem.txt, there are the contents of my text file. And of course, I can double click this and it will open it in the text editor in the Mac, and we can see there is the text that I added. So again, anything I can do in the Finder with a text pad, I can do in the terminal. And now if I hit ls again, you'll see I have poem.txt, and I also have projects. And one of the things beginners often have trouble with is when you see this list of files and directories, sometimes they have trouble telling which of them are files and which ones are directories, especially when you have a file that doesn't have an extension like .txt. So there is another argument for that. If I do ls-p, it will put the slash at the end of directories. And if I go back up to my home, know that you can chain multiple arguments. So if I do ls-pa, it's going to add the paths, and it's also going to show all of the files. So you can combine these arguments together. Very cool. Now, I'm just going to tell you, there are whole books written on shell programming and terminals. I'm covering the basics here, but this is a very deep rabbit hole if you want to go down it. And before I move on, you may have noticed that I did cd ... to go up a directory, and you also see this / and ... Those dots, if you see 1 dot, it means current directory. If you see 2 dots, it means there's a directory above. So technically, since I'm in my home directory, if I wanted to go up 2 levels to the root, I could do ... that goes up 1 level, ... to go up a 2nd level, and now I'm at the root. So you could do some really cool stuff with this. So let me show you. If I go back to my home directory and we go to the terminal demo directory, I can actually do something like cd ... to go back up to the home directory, and then go down into my documents directory. Now I hit tab and there was more than one choice, so you can see that it prompted me for both choices. But go up and then go down now I'm in my documents directory. So you can do some really cool things. This is called relative pathing, where I'm going to write a path relative to where I currently am in the terminal, my current working directory. And relative pathing is not the same as absolute pathing, which starts at the root. So if I did something like cd/users Eric downloads, that is an absolute path. So you can see how that's different than a relative path. Now let's go back to our terminal demo directory. And let's add another file. So we're going to say touch notes.txt. And that is going to add another file there. Now the next command is going to be echo. And echo prints things to the screen. So if I say echo hello, you can see it echoes back hello. But what you can do with echo is you can print different values. So for example, there are these things called environment variables that are on your computer. Now, one of them is PS1. And PS1 controls how the prompt in your terminal looks. And if I echo $PS1, you can see that is the cyan color that is my path followed by my terminal prompt. And again, in the activity in the course, I show you how to do this. But echo echoes things out to the terminal. But we can also redirect output to files using echo. So instead of using nano, if I want to add a note to my notes.txt file, I can say echo, and then I can put a string and I can say learn terminal commands. And then I can do 2 angle brackets, and I can tell it I would like you to put that in notes.txt. And then if I cat notes.txt, you can see their learn terminal commands is in the file. And the way this is used by professionals is oftentimes you'll be running commands or scripts in the terminal, and there will be some logged output that you want to keep. And instead of printing the output to the terminal window, you might want to direct it to a file so that you can save it for later. So just another example of the power of the terminal. I don't have to actually open the file. I don't have to use a text editor at all. I can just directly output text into the file. And for another example of redirecting output, let's go ahead and go back up to our home directory, and let's do ls, and then I'm going to do an angle bracket, and I'm going to say terminal_demo/dearlisting.txt. And look at that. The ls command did not return any of the files and folders that it would normally return because I told it to direct to this file. And now if I cat the contents of that file, you can see there are the public folders and files that are in my home directory. Now, if you were paying attention, you notice that I used 2 angle brackets for echo, and I used 1 angle bracket for ls. And you're probably wondering, what is the difference? Well, if you use a single angle bracket, it will overwrite the file. So if the file already exists and there's data in it, that data will be gone. It will be replaced. If you do 2 angle brackets, then it will append the text to the end of the file. So one of the commands is destructive and the other one is additive. And just to drive the point home even further, let's do ls-pa and direct it to the terminal demo directory listing text file. You'll notice that it did it. It overwrote the file. So if I cat it out, there is the new contents of the file. But notice that it didn't ask me if I'm sure. And this is just something, again, the terminal assumes that you know what you're doing. So it is not forgiving. It will very rarely, there are a few commands that will ask you if you're sure, but a lot of them do not. So just be aware, double check your syntax before you run commands that could be destructive to your data. Now let's go ahead and clear our terminal, and we'll talk about moving and copying files. Now I'm still in my home directory. The Finder is down in the terminal demo directory. So let's go ahead and create a file in the home directory in the wrong spot. So I'm just going to call this info.csv. And then I'm like, oh no, I did not want that there. I wanted that file down in the terminal demo directory. You can use the command mv. You tell it the path to the file. Now, since I'm already in the directory, there is no path. I can just use the file name. And then you put a space and you give it the path and the name of the file that you want it to move to. So I can say terminal demo / and let's say I want to rename it on the way through. If I just use the directory, it's going to send the file info.csv in there. But move is also used to rename. So I can just call this info2.csv. And you'll see info2 appears. And if I type ls in the current directory, info.csv is not there. It has been moved. Now, if I drop down into the terminal demo directory, I can also copy files. And copy works very similarly to move, where you have two arguments. The first is the name of the file. So we'll just say info2.csv. And let's say we wanted to make a backup. I could say info2.bak. And now we have the original file and we have the backup file. It has been copied. And again, this command, just like mv, you can specify a full path. So if I wanted to copy one of these files to a completely different directory, I can type out that path to get there, either relative using the ... slashes or absolute by starting with a slash. And now that I have a different file extension, I'm going to show you something else. So if I say ls, it gives me everything. What if I only wanted to see the text files? Well, this is where wildcards come in. So I can do ls star, which means any character, .txt. And what this will tell the command to do is list only the files that have some number of characters followed by the literal text .txt. And if I do that, you see now it only returns the text files in the directory. So now let's clear our terminal and let's work on cleaning up after ourselves. So here we are in terminal demo. If you want to remove a file, you can type rm, and let's just get rid of our backup file, info2.bak. Now, when I hit enter, you see that it goes away. And again, I have to warn you because the terminal can be dangerous. If I open my trash, you will notice that info2.bak is not here. There is no undo command for rm. So if you delete something using rm, it is gone. Now let's talk about how to remove a directory. That command is rmdir. So if I drop down into my projects folder, I can try to remove directory Python, and notice that it fails. It says the directory is not empty. Now, remove directory, it will only remove empty directories. But if I'm looking at my Finder, it doesn't look like there's anything in this directory. So what's going on? Well, let's find out. Let's use our new tools. So if I do ls-a Python, oh, look, there's a hidden file called dsstore. This is a macOS file. If you were just a regular user, unless you had hidden files and folders shown, you would not know that this directory was not empty. So let's go ahead and remove that file. So we'll say python /.dsstore. ds store. And now if we use our ls-a command again, by the way, you can hit the up arrow and you can get back to commands you used before. Now that file is gone. And if I remove the Python directory, it will now go away. Now, what if you do want to delete a directory that has files in it? Well, I'm going to show you this, but it's kind of dangerous. So let's go back up to our home folder. This will be the final cleanup step. We are going to delete the entire terminal demo folder. And we do that with the remove command. But this time we're going to do an argument -r. And this means recursive. So it is going to go all the way down through the directory tree, and any files or subdirectory are going to get nuked. So this is very dangerous. Do not ever do this at a higher level directory if there's anything underneath it that you want to keep. So I'm going to say rm-r, terminal demo subfolder, and it's gone. My Finder actually realized that it was in that folder. It's in an invalid state, so it just jumped up to the home directory so that it wasn't in an invalid state. But rm-r, you may have seen like memes online if you follow some programming humor where they joke about like ChatGPT or an AI telling you to rm-rf at your root. And basically that joke just means that it would delete your entire hard drive. So be very careful with this one. Now we'll clear the terminal again. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to get help. Now, obviously you can read documentation online, but there is documentation in your terminal shell, and it is accessed using a command called man. And it shows the manual for any command that is installed. So if I type man ls, it's going to take me into the general commands manual, and here is ls. And you can see here it does scroll, and it shows you what all of those arguments are and what they do. So again, any command here, you can look it up. You can find out how to use it. There are differences, as you can see, between lowercase letters and uppercase letters. A couple different things you can do to navigate through man is if you press the space bar, it will kind of page down. If you press B, it will back up. And if you press Q, it will quit.